cleaning up the pinion gear shaft. So we're taking off about 30 thou in diameter now. Swapped over to a high-speed steel tool to try and get a better finish. This is the first pass that we've taken, which is cleaning up. Running at 550 RPM between centres. Just using a medium weight cutting oil. We'll see what it looks like. Right, cleaned up with the last pass with a high speed steel bit. We've got a thou taper on it, and we've got a very small amount of chatter there. I had to drop the speed right down. And I think if I do an A-bomb and hit it with some Scotch-Brite or whatever abrasive I've got to hand, I'll bring the taper out and polish out that bit of chatter. And then I think that shaft will be fine. Still a bit of a shoulder there. Just need to break that edge. Clean that one up so it's true to that, just in case there is any movement. Didn't seem to be out of round. It seems to be running on the centres reasonably well. Nothing noticeable. Well, we finished cleaning up the shaft. Reintroduced some nice chatter marks for the oil feed. Yeah, not my best bit of undercutting. And I think that's just where the waste oil goes. So that's been a problem. To the best of my abilities to measure it, it's within half a thou over its length. A nice polished finish. It's an oddball size, but I'm half expecting them to put it back up and take it down until it's a smooth fit inside the bearing that's got to be made. But at least I'm starting from a position of that's the shaft cleaned up. So it's got to, the bearing's got to basically aim to fit that. If the bearing ends up slightly bigger, it's got to come off here, and what I'm nervous about is losing that shoulder there which locates the gear. Anyway, that's that bit done. Just starting to machine my left kidney. Turned it down to length, plus a bit of a wastage until true it up once it's in position. I'm just putting a nominal drill size. It's just under 30mm diameter. Putting that through, then we can hold it on a shaft between centres, turn the outside, and then press it into the bearing housing. It's drilling all right, making a lot of noise. As you can tell. So that's the hole stuffed up the middle. You can see down there. It goes all the way through. It's a little hot at the moment. So my idea is to, once I've got a hole that's clean as opposed to what look like rough cast, I'll then make up a mandrel, which I'm searching for, which will come from this, which I've already drilled the centres in. I've got to rough that down and then make that a size so that it's a nice snug fit, but not whopping it hard on to fit. Then I can slide the bearing onto that mandrel, hold it between centres, and turn the outside diameter of the bearing down so that it's a shrink fit into the bearing housing. Then I can mount the bearing housing on here with the mandrel in place between centres, and then put a pair of cast iron angle blocks behind the bearing housing to clamp it all in line. So I've not got to piss about with a DTI trying to line up the bore, which I find incredibly hard. So that's the plan. I mean, I could just bore this all the way through and make it the right diameter for the shaft, which I've cleaned up. But my fear is when it goes into the bearing housing, in order to get it secured in the bearing housing, it wants to be a shrink fit. And from a few videos I've watched on the tube, as the outer housing shrinks onto the bearing inside distorts a small amount, so much so that the shaft won't go through. That's fairly typical for a sort of inch and a quarter, inch and a half diameter shaft, from what I've seen. So I've then got to mount everything back up to bore it out, in which case why not just bore it out from in the first place, once it's in situ. That's the logic that I'm following. It'll probably be going stuck as we're going along. Hey ho. Do you know, I think that's the cleanest hole I've ever cut with a drill. Expensive, mind. I tickled up the cutting edges of the drill with a diamond stone to take them back a little bit. I don't know whether you can see this. Focus your darn thing. Hang on. There you go. So you can just see where I've polished the edges and then polished the inside face, so it was more, the idea being, in order to stop it from grabbing, I've just made that face there a little bit more at 90 degrees to the angle of approach, so it's more of a scraping action than a cutting action. Chips were nice. I know bronze and brass machine all right, but my experience is it grabs and it squeals, and but you know, you live and learn. We've finally got the mandrel made for turning the OD of the brass bush, the bronze bush I should say. Just cleaning it up so I can get a measurement, work out where we need to be. Glad the ball gear shaft has been delivered this morning. I've not had a chance to open it up and look at it yet. Trying not to think about it so I can get on with this one, get this finished. So this evening's task is to turn the OD of the bush so it fits in that ID. I've been measuring it all up with a telescoping gauge and a micrometer. Did it all in imperial and then figured, well, I might as well do it in metric so that I can use my dials on the lathe. There's quite a bit of variation one end to the other and side to side. It's averaged out in imperial anywhere between 1.533 and 1.535, so there's a couple of thou variation. The bush is currently at 1.623 OD. I want to aim for 2 thou oversize to that, so that gives me a target OD of 1.536, or in metric 38.96. That's the that's what we're aiming for. So the bush is held on the mandrel between centres. I've just roughly cleaned it up. Next job's to finish my cup of tea and then start taking some cuts, bring it down to size and make sure it's parallel. So we've spent the last couple of hours farting about getting the boring table that... Oops. So we've spent the last couple of hours messing about getting the boring table mounted onto the Boxford, which requires a removal of the cross slide and then you're supposed to swap the nut over, and the brass nut fits in there, but given what I'm trying to do, once I've set it, won't require the cross slide to move, I'm leaving the nut off. Initial problem was trying to get the thing to tighten up. It came with a gib keys in there, and try as I might, I couldn't get rid of the plane. The grub screws that are fitted down here are basically a piece of 1/4 inch Whitworth thread, which somebody's hacksawed screwdriver slot into, and then one short bolt that was on this position. Anyway, I took them out, and they are 5/8 of an inch long, and that's 2 inches. Checked behind, and sure enough, they've got no push rods. So then having to hunt high and low to find a piece of doweling or steel rod that would fit the place, which involved shifting a hell of a lot of stuff to get to my box of steel bits. Anyway, they're all in. I've rough mounted the angle plates, and we're getting there slowly. I still don't know whether I can clamp the thing properly, because it ain't an easy job to set up, not least because it weighs quite a bit, which is why I was originally planning, and still am, on basically setting it between centres. So that end will locate, that'll then locate, that'll give me the everything's lined up to the centre, and then I clamp across the face of there. So that's 90. That face, I've got to believe, is 90 to the shaft. There's a small error on the grinding of these, but not enough for me to worry about. So that's where I'm at. So that's the basic setup for the clamping. I'm wondering about whether to stick something under there. I'd be happier with a better clamp on this side. That one's got a decent sized tool clamp on. I've only got the one of them that size. I'm going to slide the mandrel back inside, and then set the tailstock right at the very end of the lathe, and then wind the assembly backwards and forwards and see if the centre lines up that end, and then when I wind it all the way that way, does it line up, and then we'll see how much flex we've got. But by doing it this way, I've locked all of these up, so that can't move now backwards or forwards, it can only go that way. And that's obviously not connected to anything. Time for a tea. So here's the problem. That's with the tailstock in position. If I loosen that off, watch the dial. That's in metric, so that's 10. It's about 5 thou droop. I've already started shimming the flange against the angle plates. It's just a case of messing about till I get it something right, because it's got to basically run between the centres, otherwise it ain't going to be square. I've got a G-clamp. I put a packing piece under the front edge. Sorry about the noise. It's not a great cut, so I'm going to have to look at the blade, the tool geometry. There's a lot of vibration. On the slowest speed, and we're only taking, I don't know. An M4 thread, and we're doing an 1/8 of a turn. It's not a lot. Well, I've had the tool out and reshaped it, give it a more acute angle at the tip, so there's less cutting surface. That's what we were using, shape wise. We took about 10 degrees out this angle of the point of the tip. The clearance angles remain about the same. Cut the noise down, and I'm just machining out the horrendous chatter marks. I'm beginning to wish I'd bought a Morse taper drill that I could have opened it out nearer to size. This is going to take quite a while. So we're still boring out the pinion gear bearing, and I'm coming to the conclusion that this grade of phosphor bronze doesn't like high speed cutting. Just taking the tip off me high speed steel bit after a single pass running at 500 RPM. The ID's 1.25 inches, and we're taking off whatever, I need to do the maths, but it's I think it's 0.7 pitch of the screw, and I'm taking an 1/8 of a rotation, so that's the advance, an 1/8 of a 0.7 of a mil. Yeah, only a little cut. I've upped the feed rate a little bit, and that seems to be fine, but it certainly doesn't like shifting it at any speed. When I've checked through some backdated cutting tool info, it states for phosphor bronze pretty much the same settings as cast iron, which, you know, just seemed very slow in comparison with how I turned the outside. But I didn't take much off the outside, and it's probably that saved the tool bit. But I mean, I've only got point. There's nothing fancy with it. So yeah, I'm just trying it at slower speed, and then I'm going to try lifting the depth of cut a bit until we get where we want. So that sounds a lot better. We're at 310 RPM. No sound of chatter, which is what we want. The main problem is clearing the chips out. I haven't got compressed air, only my lungs, and I've got to go and find a tube or something I can puff down it with. It's just going to take a bit longer running it slower, that's all. Of course, the major advantage of using the line boring, as far as I'm concerned, is I can take the tooling out, take a look inside, clear the chips out. More importantly, I can actually measure the thing easily, or relatively easily, from both ends. So that's what we're doing next. So we've dropped the feed right down now because we're aiming for a finish, and that's the same depth of cut that you can barely hear it cutting. That's the compressed air hose, and that end I blow down. Slow and steady, as long as it's right at the end, I don't mind. There's 1/1000th of an inch, as best I can measure, clearance. Interestingly, despite my best efforts, I'm going to miss alignment between there and there. No bleeding idea what's happened, and that is a lot, which is very disappointing. Less so on this side, but there's obviously something shifted in the setup. I'll measure it up and see what it is. This is the side the gear fits, so if you like, the gear's going to be tilted, sorry, that way. Given that the pinion gear's got a fair amount of wear on it from being running a cocked up bearing, I don't think it's going to make a huge difference. It's not running at high speed or anything. Just frustrating that it's happened. Be nice to understand how that happened. I mean, it can only be that when that flange has been set up on centres and then packed to stop it moving about, so that it was square. Because I don't think the top of that is square to the bed, and I think that's where some of the misalignment came in, which needed that packing. But I mean, it was mounted between centres on a reasonable bore tight fit. Well, as I say, shit happens. Anyway, I think it'll go. At least I've learnt a lot, so I'll be able to do the next one a lot quicker if I have to. I'll have to sell my other kidney though.